All right, it looks like we're live. Let me know if you can hear me. Type 1 if you can hear me. Good, good. So I am a little earlier today. We're going to look at the budget deficit and other topics. We're going to have Rafi on. He's coming on at 8:30 in about 7 minutes. I just thought I'd log in or tune in a little early as usual. Yeah, so we've got Eugene, we got Evola's sunglasses. Sound is good. Rudy's doing well. We've had a really nice weekend with the family. We've trained Rudy. He's doing really well. He's learning very quickly. And yeah, hopefully next week, after he's been warmed, we'll be able to, yeah, go for a walk. We trained him today in the house on the lead to teach him how to walk on the lead. So we've got Des Smith. Thank you for typing 1. Manic Miner says, good evening, Mario and Billy and Rudy. Sorry, I still get confused with Billy. Hi, Hannah. Pablo Pina from Ontario, Canada. Another UFO anomaly in the air. Well, yeah, I try to, yeah, I'm aware of what's happening, but I think we need to focus on other things. These are all distractions, I would say. Yeah, I'm a little early. I did set this up for 8:30. In the winter, for me, it's better to start a little early. And usually I started a little early anyway, so I'm just logged in. Why do you need to worm him so young? Well, that's because he could get if he goes out in the garden and he could get ill. That's what the vets have told us, and that's what we've done with all our other dogs. Cat Cord from Montreal. 1,000 silver. I'm not really focusing on these supposed UFOs. So that's not something that I think is worth expanding too much energy on. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. I think we need to focus on what's happening fiscally, monetarily, and that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the U.S. budget deficit. It's not here just in the UK that the deficit is running wild. It's also in the U.S. Salad. Do you think dinar will be RV? uh, uh, why would the Iraqi dinar be? I mean, I've heard the story for a couple of decades. I think you need to forget about the dinar. The best thing to hold is gold and silver. Yep. So yeah, yeah, dinar. I mean, that's a distraction as well, just like the UFOs, I would say. Dude Scooter thinks the mortgage-backed security market has not yet the spigot has not opened. So do you think do you mean spigot? SPIGGO. Do you think they're gonna like start buying MBS again, the Fed, and drive interest rates low, or do you think that market is in trouble? Not sure what you mean by that. Yeah, John Berthea, I have seen that. It's someone is saying Sir Monaco 64 on Telegram. I've deleted a lot of those, and I've also reported them. They keep coming back. It's not me, of course. I never give out Telegram addresses or WhatsApp numbers. I don't use Telegram, and I wouldn't use WhatsApp for my channel. Ricky Talk from Manchester, England. Doc DD Prepper from Texas. Go to from Australia. 903 Boater from Michigan. Today they shut down airspace over Lake Michigan for a UFO. Wow, you know that I think it was President. Oh, here we go. We've got Rafi on. Let's let him in. How can we shrink the government? Well, people, the general public has to learn that government is not the solution. What's happened here? Waiting for Rafi. Hi, Rafi. Rudy is not here right now. He's asleep. And so yeah, that's how we can shrink government. People need to realize that we don't need government for all the things. We don't need the welfare state. We don't need anything really except the administration of the rule of law. Hi, Rafi.
Hey.
Oh, it's working good. I'm sitting at a different angle because if I sit straight on my desk, I get the light over my head. But now this is better, this angle.
You look like a new man.
Thank you. It's funny because I was looking at this article from Friday about the U.S. budget deficit, and I used that for the title of my live stream. And then I read your report this weekend, and you spoke about that as well. And yeah, it seems to be out of control. I think it went up by 80% compared to 2021 in the first 4 months. So Rafi the Wise has entered the land of Monaco 64. Sebastian Schmidt. So do you want to touch upon that? Seeing that
on the rising
budget deficit in the US?
Rising deficit. Well, it's the same story every year since Reagan, really.
Yeah.
Except for a brief period when Clinton was shutting down the military-industrial complex for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because he was such a bad person, but he did some seemingly good things. I mean, the Clintons are really difficult to figure out.
Yeah. And
so anyway, what it's going to bring up the final debt ceiling brinkmanship showdown by maybe a month or two. So instead of June, which is what Janet Yellen said is going to be the end of the extraordinary measures, now it's going to be like April or May. I mean, they didn't make a date known. Who knows what it's going to last like, but so they're going to have to figure this out by April or May instead of by June, but they'll figure it out. You said there's a possibility that they won't, because
I don't know.
Maybe they just won't this time. Maybe it'll be the most obvious trigger to the end game that we could think of, but I think they're going to figure it out and it'll be something else. But we'll see.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, okay. No, here in the UK as well, we had a record budget deficit in November and December, and if you look at how you calculate GDP, you add government spending. So I would say that the GDP numbers are actually, they look okay, but it's only because the government has pumped so much spending into the system. If you were running a budget, balanced budget, or even a small surplus like the Germans used to run prior to COVID, the economy would be in a recession.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you're saying in the UK the deficits are even worse than during COVID?
Well, it was the worst deficit in November and December since they've started recording it in 1993. It's not worse than COVID for the financial year yet, but it's getting bad. So it's just like in the US, these first 4 months since October, which is the fiscal year, has been pretty bad as well. So I think it's that's what is making the US economy and the UK economy look decent, is the deficit spending.
Well, the deficits now are at a much higher interest rate. All the money that they're borrowing now, they lock that interest rate in what it is. So
Yeah,
it's not 0% anymore. It's like 4 or 5%. Now they're really starting to rack up the interest payments.
yeah, that's right. And Rafi, there's a lot of people going on about these things that they're being shot. Like I think they shot something in Alaska yesterday, and I think they shot something in Canada. They're calling it UFOs. I personally think it's a huge distraction. I mean, during I think Reagan once said in a speech that the only way that we'd bring all the nations of the world together was if we had an alien invasion. Do you like buy into this stuff that they might fake an alien invasion?
No, I don't. I don't think they have the capability of doing that. I don't know what this is. It seems incredibly stupid. I don't understand how the news cycle works. It just seems to get dumber and dumber every month. I don't even know what they're trying to do, or if this is just like there was a balloon somewhere and they're like, oh, let's just do another one and see what they do. Are we in some kind of like weird psychological experiment by whoever's in charge of the media, and they're just like playing around? I don't know. It just, the whole thing just seems so dumb. I can't even figure it out.
Someone mentioned here a couple of interviews you did recently. I watched the Cliff High interview. That was quite interesting. You didn't touch upon silver, which was a little bit disappointing, but it doesn't matter. And then you had the interview with Nick Cotton, who I hadn't heard of before. He's here in the UK. That was really interesting as well. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you about the Cliff interview and then the Nick Cotton interview.
Oh, so Cliff High, I purposely didn't talk about silver because I wanted to talk about things that we disagreed with. I didn't really understand his worldview so much, and quite frankly, I still don't. And he's a good guy. He doesn't think in the same ways that I do, which is, it's fine. People don't have to. I just wanted to understand where he was coming from, and okay, so I got that. It was, entertaining. So I guess I'll contact him again, and we'll have more of a silver chat, gold and silver, and that'll be fun too. But I wanted to separate the two things. And Nick Cotton, that was weird because I think I was on some kind of UK alternative news network. I had a request for an interview, and then Nick Cotton found me, and he had this some Zionist YouTube channel, a guy who goes out and tries to find anti-Semites and point and laugh at them and try to push them into holes and try to make people look like they're anti-Semitic when they're not really. So I think Nick was a victim of that, and I just wanted to let him know that we're not all we don't all try to make a living off the Holocaust. So I thought that was important just to get out there, and we had a good conversation. It was fun.
And you touched upon gold and the fact that he used the word magical about gold.
Oh yeah. So I should have sometimes things only occur to me later on, and he said in passing that he thinks that gold is some kind of magical thing because it always seems to retain its value. And why should this material always retain its value through all the societal collapses that have happened since the beginning of money economics? And the answer is pretty simple, actually, because gold and silver are money, and you can only have a money system if prices go back in time. So all prices have to go back to the first group of transactions that started using gold and silver as money, all the way back to when the Greeks used it as electra, I think, or what do they call it? That gold silver alloy, however long it's been used.
Yeah.
So every time a monetary system collapses, you have to go back to the money itself, and that means you're going back to ground level. Just like when a city collapses, and then hundreds of years later, humans go back to the same point, and they rebuild from the ground up. But so, is that magical? No, it's not magical. You're not going to build from the middle of the air. You have to go back to gold and silver every time. So that's why it retains value, because no, you can't go back to anything else.
And it's interesting because very few people realize that. And I think very few people will be caught unaware of the power of having gold and silver as well when you get a currency collapse. And you spoke about that as well, that that will be the best time to like exchange your gold and silver for really bargain and valuable assets. So maybe if you could elaborate on that for the viewers.
Yeah, so every time there is a monetary collapse and there's a monetary reset, and it's happened many times in history. This is not the first time, but this would be the first time it's global. I mean, the closest thing to a global reset that Western world ever had was the fall of the Roman Empire, and that took a lot of wind out of Western sails. It took about 1,000 years to recoup from that. I don't think it's going to take that long this time. We have a lot more technology. But there is a point at the point of societal collapse where money becomes very very valuable, because it is needed in order to preserve whatever civilization is left. So at the very end of the Roman Empire, if you had gold and silver, you could buy a lot of stuff with it because everybody needed it. And that period doesn't really last that long, and because gold and silver is supposed to retain their value. But after a collapse, there is a point, whether it be weeks, months, maybe a year or two at this time, where things will be priced very cheaply in terms of gold and silver. And I have a target for what number should be reached, or around what number should be reached, in order to start spending your stock, your metals, and that is around a 100% backing of the Federal Reserve balance sheet, and around a 15-to-1 gold to silver ratio. Not exactly those numbers. So as we approach those numbers, you should spend more and more. But you want to really not go to zero, but minimize your gold and silver holdings when we get to those numbers, and always keep some for safety. I'm not saying spend all of it, but don't forget to spend it when the numbers are favorable.
I also look at the Dow gold ratio. I think that's an interesting one. If we are near 1, and I think that's like a sign that things are resetting. We're talking about the Clinton surplus, and we've got a comment here from Jeff Logue. He says, "Come on, Rafi, the Clinton budget surplus was an accounting gimmick."
Yeah, partly it was, but even though it was an accounting gimmick, then he balanced the budget enough that all he needed was an accounting gimmick to make it look actually balanced.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. One thing that I think the Clinton administration did that was the laid the seeds down for all the financial troubles and crises we've had since the year 2000, is the repeal of Glass-Steagall and allowing commercial banks to go into the investment banking business. I think that was huge. I don't think we would have had the 08 crisis if that Glass-Steagall would have still been in place. And there was a commissioner of the CFTC. Her name was Brooksley Bourne. And she tried to tell Congress that it was a bad idea for commercial banks to be involved in derivatives. But then you had Larry Summers, who was the Secretary of the Treasury at the time, and Alan Greenspan, Chairman of the Federal Reserve. They ganged up on her and said, no, it will be no problem. We have to allow the commercial banks to become investment banks. And, that's why we've had such a growth in derivatives, and banks like JP Morgan, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs now have hundreds of trillions in derivatives. So I think that was a huge mistake by the Clinton administration. Not that I want to cover too much the Clintons, but there's another thing here, Rafi, that I saw. This is to do with the UK about a mortgage repayment crisis is looming, and this age group will be the worst hit. They're talking about, like they call them, older millennials here, as you can see, and these are the people in their 30s, early 40s, and
That me? That's me.
yeah. Well, hopefully you haven't taken a huge mortgage though. Uh,
Nope.
no, that's good, because a lot these people, 35 to 39 and 30 to 40, they've taken on a lot of debt, as you can see here. That's the black part, is all the debt. And they did it like in 2021, 2022, when rates were really low and people were encouraged to buy. They like took out they stopped the stamp duty for a while, and in this country we've had this help to buy scheme as well, to buy homes, and the government has actually financed this help to buy scheme. For, let's say, in London, you can borrow, let's see, I've got the help to buy here as well. Here we go. Help to buy scheme in London. And you can borrow up to, like, government will give you 40% of the value of the house as a loan, interest-free loan for 5 years. But after 5 years, of course, you got to pay the government. And this help to buy ended in October 2022. So I think it could be a huge problem. I've noticed that interest rates in the UK, like gilt yields, are starting to tick up again. And someone, I don't know if you have any opinion on the mortgage-backed securities market in the US. Someone asked before you came on if there's going to be a spigot open for the mortgage-backed security market. I didn't really know what he meant, whether the Fed is going to start buying MBS or if there's going to be a crisis. What's your feeling about the US housing market?
Well, as long as interest rates stay where they are or rise further, and they will, then eventually there's going to be a housing crash, because that's what happens to prices. I mean, when yields go up, prices go down. It's the same with bonds, it's the same with mortgages, the same with any rate versus price. They always go inverse. Sometimes there's a delay. So there seems to be a delay now. How long will the delay last? But I guarantee you that when it does hit, we won't be scrutinizing over how long the delay happened to be. We won't even remember that it happened. It'll just be, history, just like it is every time. When rates go up, prices go down for anything.
Yeah.
So it's gonna happen again. I mean, there's no escaping economic law.
No, Rumpelstiltskin is here. He's an American in Japan. And yeah, sorry, Rumpelstiltskin. I started at 8:30 London because in the winter it's a bit easier to do it a little earlier because it gets dark early. But Rumpelstiltskin, he sent me last year a magazine, a Time magazine or Newsweek magazine from August, I think, 22nd, 1971. And I still have it here, but I have to get it out another day. And it's about Nixon and when he closed the gold window. And the headline was "The New Dollar." So that's an interesting magazine that Rumpelstiltskin sent me. He says, "My uncle always said, you snooze, you lose." All right. Rafi, you were talking earlier about when when we reach the end game and you have to use your gold or silver to, maybe buy assets. The other thing I think is important is that when that happens, it's going to be tough. And on the way there, it's going to be tough. And it's already tough right now. And I think it's also important that if you're able to hold on to your gold and silver, it's not that easy. So that's why I keep telling people to get out of that as much as possible, live within your means, because you don't want to be using your gold and silver to survive this crisis. You want to use it after the crisis. And with that, Rafi, I just wanted to, if it's okay, asking you, have you got any ideas of what you'd want to put your gold and silver into?
What would I want to buy? Probably I'd want to buy maybe some like a business, something in real assets, maybe I don't know, an oil like oil companies, energy companies, something that can ensure my income, and I can bequeath to my kids to give them an income stream so they don't have to worry as much about making ends meet. Something where I can ensure my family's wealth for generations to come. I haven't thought that that big about it. I'm pretty sure the prices that will be available then, they will show their opportunities as to what is available. And who knows? I have ideas of things I want to donate to and causes that I want to further. Buy land, farming. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. No, I think also helping people is something, people who are deserving is a good thing. And the other day, I gave a bit of money to this veterans charity. I went to fill my car, the tank of my car, and this guy was out there. And it's just a shame that the government, they these people fight for the countries, and they're the ones that are at least looked after. So there you go. Echo, picking up what on Rafi said about when rates go up, prices come down. I suppose the flip side is that government 10-year rate fell for decades, and the price of homes rose for decades. Yeah, that's right. When you have a bull market in bonds and a bear market in yields, and assets always go up, and and it's really easy to borrow. You can buy a home for $200,000, and then yields go down and it goes up to 400. You sell it. You pay off your mortgage and you buy something and you keep going. But I'm afraid that now it's going the other way, and money and credit is going to be much harder to get. Is that the way you see it as well, Rafi?
Yeah, well, the higher rates go, the harder it is to get credit. That's why they tinker with rates. Because really what they're trying to do by tinkering with rates is alter the money supply. When there's more money in the economy, when there's more money being created, rates will go down almost automatically, because the more liquidity that's in the system, it makes it look like there's more savings, and if it looks like there's more savings, the rate on those savings is going to go down. But these are all just manipulated signals. The real signal should be the actual amount of money in the economy, so that savers and spenders can balance each other, and then you don't have an economy that's growing crazily or crashing crazily. It grows at a steady clip, in conforming with the population growth, and things balance themselves out. Not just population and money, but environmental stuff. Even you could say maybe the CO2 in the atmosphere would balance itself out, because the economic activity would be in accordance with the actual conditions of finance in a real sense, tied to gold and silver. I'm convinced that moving back to gold and silver will solve not every single problem, but it would bring the entire planet back to balance with humanity.
I agree as well. I think a lot of the development that we've seen, and yeah, I'm not saying development is a bad thing, but the all the pollution, especially like in countries like Brazil, where I grew up, and other emerging market countries, without the fiat currency system, I don't think things would have mushroomed and there would have been so much consumption as there is. So I think going back to like a real money system, sound money system, will basically people will concentrate more on being productive. And yes, there's always consumption, but it's not going to be it's not going to be the Keynesian way. The Keynesians, they think that as long as we keep spending, everything's fine, and they forget about the production. The Austrians say for every consumer, you need to have a producer, but it seems like with the Keynesians, it doesn't matter if you don't produce, because you just get on the debt, on the debt wheel. And I think that's bad. And hopefully that will, I mean, I think it will happen because it's not sustainable, this system anyway. So we've got a super chat from Dmitry Shmerkovich. Thank you, Dmitry. He says, Rafi, how much purchasing power do you think metals will have? Do you think there will be an opportunity to buy rental properties in Israel? Somehow I only see this ending with Melech HaMashiach.
Oh, okay. So he's talking about the redemption of humanity. So he's saying that that the only way this ends is with the Messiah coming. Maybe, could be. I don't know. Not my business. But I think that one of the advantages with Israel is that the Bank of Israel owns no gold at all. So gold will be especially valuable here because there will be so little of it. Some central banks have gold, and in countries where central banks have some amount of gold will be slightly less valuable because the supply will be higher. So where there is no gold, it'll be that much more desperate to get it in so that they can have an economy too. So yeah, I think there will be some opportunities to buy rental properties in Israel. So get ready for it, prepare.
Rental property is a good thing. You just need to be careful with the taxation. Well, at least here in the UK. Pace Arrow, Rafi Mario, the Florida economy is growing on fire. Do you think enclaves or some states will be spared the wrath? Have you got a view on the Florida economy, Rafi? I know you were originally from there, but I don't know if you keep track of it.
No, I don't look at Florida as an economic entity that much, but I do understand why it would be booming. That makes perfect sense. I mean, DeSantis has done a lot of good since turning around the lockdowns and everything that he started opposing. And it would make sense that a lot of people would move to Florida because of this, and away, out of California and into Florida, out of New York into Florida, and really make the place boom because it's a better life. So do I think Florida is going to be spared? No, it's not going to be spared. But everyone's going to suffer. I mean, there's going to be no place that's going to be completely spared from this. I mean, it's not like any country has anything close to sound money, including Florida, because Florida's on the dollar system. Everyone inflates. Everyone's going to suffer. And the only ones who are going to spare themselves sufficiently are individuals, because we're the only ones that are putting ourselves on a gold standard. And even we're not going to escape completely. I mean, we're going to do the best that we can.
Yeah. Rafi, Cupid's stunt has a question. If the gold-silver ratio drops to 15-1, would you swap silver for gold or swap silver for other assets? What's your view on that?
I would swap silver for some gold. Just because I would want to lock that in, and once a new gold substitute is established after the dollar collapses, then silver is probably going to lose value pretty quickly. Once there's a new substitute in place, so the first thing I would want to spend is my silver, and I would spend some of it by moving it into gold, so I'd have more time to consider what to do with it. But if I could exchange silver coins for assets, I would do that.
Okay. LG says Bone Valley in Florida, a world-leading exporter of fertilizer. Yeah, I mean, I like Florida. I haven't been to Florida in a long time. But yeah, if I were to move to Florida, I'd probably move more towards Central Florida because it's a little cooler up there. Miami is a bit too hot for me, I think. What's your view on that, Rafi?
Well, I grew up in Miami. It's pretty
Yeah,
hot,
yeah,
but you got air conditioning all the time.
yeah. It's like Rio in Brazil as well. It's very hot. So, let's have a look here. I wanted to look at something else. Oh yeah, talking about Brazil, I read an article, Rafi. It just goes to show how politicians are like clueless. And so we got the new president of Brazil, Lula, who's a socialist. And I'm not defending central banks, but if there is a central bank that actually has positive real yields, it's the Brazilian one. I think the CPI there is around 5.5, and their bank rate is over 13%. So Lula's attacking the central bank because they're independent right now, and he can't do much about it. And he's complaining that a 3.25% inflation target is too low for Brazilian standards. And he says that it would be better for Brazilians and the economy to have 4.5 to 4% inflation. It just goes to show that that would be hurting the people that he's supposed to help, the lower end of the economic strata in Brazil. So I think it's the Keynesian fallacy that inflation is a good thing. What would you add to that?
I would add that whoever this president is, he is probably controlled by the WEF. And I mean, a higher inflation rate would be better for him.
Yeah.
Because it always helps the rich. It would be worse for the poor, which is most of Brazil. And I think he came out. I saw another article about him going on Twitter that people who don't make certain medical decisions will be locked out of benefits.
Oh yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
So this guy, whoever he is, he sounds absolutely horrible. And he's 77, so hopefully he'll kick the bucket soon and we can move on.
Yeah, and it's one of the few times that I've actually defended a central banker here. This the Brazilian central bank president Roberto Campos. So that's unusual for me, and it's interesting because the history of the Brazilian central bank goes back to 1964. A few years ago I realized that it was created on December 31st. 1964. And what did we have in 64 in Brazil? We had like a coup, a military coup that a lot of people think was fomented by the CIA because the US wasn't happy with an elected president in Brazil. And it's interesting that right after the coup, they created a central bank as well. So anyway, let's have a look at some more of the questions. Boris Perez, where did all those balloons come from? Yeah, we're not focusing on the balloons. We think it's a distraction, right, Rafi?
Not only do I think it's a distraction, I don't even understand how this started. Like, what is going on with the balloons? It just seems so dumb.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's helping the missile or whatever they're using, the producers of those things, because they cost quite a lot. Blowing up a balloon with a I don't know how much they cost, millions of dollars, just a waste of money. I guess it will help the deficit. Someone saying,
it feels like the entire mind of humanity is suffering from ADHD.
Yeah. Someone here says, Ana Moura, she's in Brazil. She says, Brazil é uma piada. That means Brazil is a joke. Well, yeah, that's a shame because it's has a lot of potential, Brazil, but that it's the country of potential always. Ron Hubbard says he was born in 64 as well. Me too. Steve Woiters, Myra Rafi, what do you think stock market reaction will be if we get a rise in CPI on Tuesday? You mean a higher than expected number? I think if you get a higher than expected number, the stock market will probably go down. The CPI will rise. It's rising by about at least 5-6%. What about you, Rafi? What's your view on it?
Yeah, I think we're still in the paradigm where higher consumer prices means that, oh, the Fed's going to hike more and therefore everything goes down. But we're in a, more important than that, we're in an environment, a situation now where the market's going to look for excuses to sell off. I do not think that we're in a new bull market at all. This rally that's been happening since, I don't know, 2 or 3 months now, it's not going to last because the money supply is still falling, and it's going to be falling for quite a while yet, until the Fed drops interest rates back to zero again. So any excuse for the market to sell off, it will. That's the tilt that we're on now, and I got to realize that.
Steve, in Stamford, when buying more gold the other day, I was asked to jump through some extra hoops that I've never been asked for. Do you think this is the usual BS about where's your money come, or a restriction? I guess it depends. I mean, I bought some silver and gold the other day. I went to my local coin dealer in Bromley North. Didn't buy that much. He doesn't really ask for anything, so it depends. I mean, gold investments in London, they're quite chilled about things like that. I don't know where you went, but I haven't seen any kind of questions when buying stuff. The thing about Lula as well, I think he said that if parents that want this, it's a benefit for, it's called family Bolsa Familia, which means, a family basket benefit. He said that if the parents don't have the thing, the kids won't get the benefits. And so it just goes to show to me that yeah, he's a really, really evil guy. I would say that he wants to control people with the money, and like saying, if you don't take this, you won't get that. But I would say to people in Brazil, try to not be dependent on the government. It's easy for me to say that, but yeah, live within your means. I know it's tough. But yeah, once you get dependent on government, things can go downhill. Do you remember, Rafi? I think he was the mayor of New York. I forgot what his name was.
De Blasio.
Oh yeah, Wilhelm, and he was like trying to entice people with a cheeseburger. Did you see that?
Yeah, I
You
saw
get
that.
you get your thing, and you will give you a cheeseburger. And he took a bite. So good. I mean, like you said, people are everyone has ADHD. I mean, that was an example of it, I thought.
Yeah, well, he's another example of a horrible person, Bill de
Yeah.
Blasio, for so many reasons.
James Hafford says, the other day when I took out cash to get gold and silver, the bank said that because of the amount, then had to ask what it was for. I said personal, and they didn't ask any more details. Yeah, they've been asking that. I mean, remember 10-15 years ago, they used to ask, because I like to take the cash out sometimes and go buy some gold. And the bank would say, what's the money and what's that for? I said, none of your business. And they can't really say anything. So yeah, none of your business. Rafi, what about in Israel? Do you use a lot of cash, or how is the balance there between cash and digital or cards?
We're not allowed to use that much cash anymore. They're really cracking down on it here. I think legally you can use 6,000 shekels at a time for any single service. I don't think many people actually listen to that. The media here will lie about it and say, oh, there's 95% compliance, blah blah blah. I don't believe anything they say. But it's getting harder and harder to use cash. And most of what I do is bank transfers or credit card, and it's a shame.
Yeah. Oh, so do you remember you probably know that, we've been talking about how gold demand in 2022 is the highest since 1967. But as it turns out, this is the World Gold Council website, and the World Gold Council is run by like the central bankers. Really, the Bank of England is heavily in control of it, but they've had to make a correction on the 31st of January, and they actually underestimated. So this is the net purchases by central banks. So it was supposed to be the highest since like here. But now it's the highest it's been like ever. And the interesting thing they say here is, and I think you said something that it's not that important, the central bank buying, but I thought that was interesting though. It says, should more information about this unreported activity become available, these estimates may be revised. So I think it could be even higher. So the way I feel about the central banks, all the buying is that they know what's coming. Because if you look here in the 50s and 60s, a lot of the central banks were getting gold. And and then in the 70s, it went up. And they're accumulating here too.
Yeah. So in terms of maybe a predictive trend, or I'm not saying it's insignificant. It's a newsworthy thing, and pay attention to it. But in terms of is this going to save the currencies of these central banks? I don't think so, because so they're accumulating gold now, fine, but they've been selling it from what was that chart that chart in that article was from like about 1990 to 2011. They were selling it year after year after year. So they still have a lot less gold than they did back then, and they have a lot more of their currencies out in circulation. So it's a good sign for stackers, and it's not going to save their currencies.
Yeah, and I think the central banks that are buying the most are not Western central banks. It's more in the East. So I think that's another thing that, I think if you are buying gold and silver and you live in Western Europe or the US, I think you're going to be doing well. There's something else here that I wanted to talk. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. Have you heard about I'm going to share this as well again. This is from the CFTC, because the commitment of traders report hasn't been published since the 24th of January.
Really?
And it's because of Ion is like a firm that bought they do data processing for a lot of the brokers and banks, and they've been hacked apparently. So it's not just gold and silver open interest that they haven't been able to update since January 24th, but it's all the futures, agricultural, electricity, also interest rates, futures, bond futures.
Wait,
But
what numbers exactly can they not publish?
the change, the COT report, excuse me,
The
the
commitment of
COT
trader.
report. Yeah, commitment of trader reports. So they haven't reported on it since the 24th. But it's strange that the volume and open interest, they're still reporting. So I know someone who worked in the futures market, and I'm going to talk to him about it tomorrow. But yeah, this sounds a little bit suspicious. But even though the exchange traded derivatives are much smaller than the OTC, but this could be a problem. Or what do you think? Do you think this is a good excuse that this Ion firm has been hacked, and that
I'm not really looking into it so much. It doesn't see the COT reports themselves. I've never really looked at them that closely. I check them out maybe once a month or so to see if anything really crazy is going on. But I've talked to a few people, family offices and people that do a lot of trading. in bulk and asked them about the COT reports, and they're like, well, hey, it's easy to fake it. If you're let's say you're a money manager and you want to hide your activity, so you can just register as, let's say, a commercial entity by buying a big truck
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something, and then hiding your numbers in there. So it's not really that accurate or that important. We'll see what happens. I'm not about to like raise the alarm and say, oh, this is a
Yeah.
sign of the
Yeah.
end, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Any views on the geopolitical situation, like vis-a-vis China? The fact that I see a lot of stories that the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, they're all like strengthening their military forces with the Americans because, and they're talking about Taiwan. I think if there's some kind of conflict with China, it would make what happened with Russia and Ukraine in terms of the markets and everything else like a picnic. Have you got a view on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a big conflagration with China, because if I mean, I don't know if this is how Xi Jinping thinks. I don't know how he thinks, but if I were him, I would just attack the dollar. Just all you got to do is attack the finances, and you'll win whatever. You don't even have to fight a war. You don't have to do that. America is in such a weak position now. All you got to do is sell a bunch of the treasuries that you own, and that'll be it. I mean, why go to
Yeah.
war against a foe that is so weakened already?
I agree. I mean, and they've been selling quite a few. I think they sold. They had 1.2 or 3 trillion, and now or that was the Japanese, but both the Japanese and the Chinese have been selling treasuries, and the People's Bank of China is actually buying gold and reporting it. I think the last time they reported it was in 2019, and they always report as a one-off, but for the last 3 months, they've been reporting their gold purchases. Maybe that could be a signal to the Americans. Because if if they start dumping treasuries, I'm sure the Americans will probably freeze their account, wouldn't they?
Well, they froze Russia's account,
Yeah,
and so if they can do it to Russia, they can do it to China.
yeah. So the Chinese need to be careful as well. What about Credit Suisse? You wrote about Credit Suisse in your report. What's going on there? Apparently, they've been lying about how much money people are taking out of that bank.
Yeah, so what I read was that at some point a few months ago, when their stock was really tanking, they had just reported some kind of outflow from their deposit accounts from their big depositors, and they're like, oh no, it's fine now. It was a big loss now, but now everything's fine. The flow has stopped, and the outflows have the hemorrhaging has stopped, and we can rebuild now. And now it's coming out that they were actually lying, and they didn't stop, and the outflows continue, and now even more investors are bailing out and pulling their money out of the bank. Is this going to be the end of Credit Suisse? Could be. Eventually, it's all going to end. I hope this is the first domino, and if it's not, then some other one will take it down. But I'm just waiting for the first one to fall. Let it be Credit Suisse. That'll make it easy.
Yeah, and I would say the Swiss National Bank is not in very good shape either. They're accumulating a lot of losses as
Mhm.
well. So if you guys have some more questions, feel free to ask. Um, let's see. So, do you think the CPI data are going to be? I mean, they're going to be important, but what do you think about? How do you think gold and silver will react to it? And we've had quite a sharp correction in gold and silver, but I mean, gold's still up on the year, silver not so much. Where do you see the metals in terms of fiat price?
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking. I mean, I saw silver sell off. It was only like a 2-day sell off. I don't think we're going back to lows. So at some point it reverses. What would be the immediate aftermath of a CPI that's higher than expected? I would expect that maybe in the first day or two that gold and silver would sell off, as you know, the narrative would be, oh, the Fed's going to raise interest rates higher now, faster. But then, you know, a day or two later it should reverse again, maybe even on no news, because you know this is what happens at the at the end of rate hiking cycles. I mean, you get closer and closer to a Fed pivot and gold and silver sniff it out. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
I think I'm saying an initial sell off and then a day or two later a reversal. Is that necessary? I'm not going to bank any money on that. I'm not going to try to trade
Yeah.
it, but it's
Yeah.
just my feeling.
Yeah, someone's asking actually about the Japanese, not the central bank governor nomination. He's taking over in April, and it was surprising because people didn't expect him to be that guy. It was the deputy governor that was, that was expected to take over, but he refused. And you wrote something interesting about that, and I think you're right on that he was the only guy who was willing to take this poison chalice, it seems.
Yeah. So I think the only reason that they would pick a guy that was on nobody's radar is because nobody else wanted the job. But like, what? It's not like anyone can do anything different. I mean, the Japanese have been printing money up the wazoo since 2013, and now they're stuck. Well, it's not like you can have a magical guy that can go against the business cycle, and if he stops printing money, then it'll be fine, and it won't. So
Yeah, it's going to be a disaster no matter what. And I think that's why the deputy governor said no. But this guy, for some reason, ex-MIT guy, thinks he can, or maybe I don't know what he thinks. And what's interesting is that you need to keep an eye on the changeover of governors, because I remember when Bernanke took over from Greenspan. It was around 06, 07. And look what happened right after. Look at Greenspan when he took over, I think 87. We had the big crash. The other one, the change of governors that was interesting was in 2020 when Mark Carney left the Bank of England. I think it was in March. Look what happened. You know, Andrew Bailey got really lumbered with a huge crisis. So, yeah, I think we need to keep an eye on this March, April period in Japan. And Japan, of course, is very important for the whole Western financial markets. Steve Woiters is saying gold and silver prices have held with the rise in interest rates. Why is that? Well, I'll give my opinion, then Rafi can talk about it too. Yeah, back in the 70s and even in the 60s, interest rates went from like around 4% in the 60s all the way up to like 20% in 1980, and gold went from $35 to almost 900. And I think Rafi's talked about the fact that when they're chasing rates higher, gold goes up as well. And I think the reason it's gone up is because while gold hasn't gone down, is because they haven't raised enough. The currency is still getting debased, even though we have deflation in the M2. If they really wanted to end price rises, they'd have to kill the economy. And I think that's what gold sniffs out.
Yeah, pretty much that's the story. I mean, the whole narrative of when rates go up, gold goes down, that's only very superficially true on a very short time scale. But you know, you look at the 70s and 80s, that's when rates were being pushed up to double digits, even up to 20%. And that's when gold was specifically the highest it's ever been. So why would it be any different now? It's going to be the same thing. I think Daniel Oliver talks about this. When interest rates go up, gold goes up. that's what that's what happens over time. I mean,
Yeah, the other thing as well, in an economy that is so dependent on cheap credit, when interest rates and yields are going up very quickly, that will lead to a rising cost of living, will lead to higher prices. Yeah, and but the Keynesians think that it will slow down the economy and bring down inflation, and they always seem to be wrong. Talking about inflation, Rafi, how far do you see the Fed allowing the M2 to correct down? I mean, I did a few calculations back of the envelope that M2 rose from in February 2020 to the top in 2022, rose by 41%. And now it has come down in the last year, but it's only down about 2.7%. And even though they've raised rates from like 0 to like 4.6.
Mhm. Well, look, the money supply doesn't have to contract much in order to start an avalanche, because you need consistently growing money supply in order to because the faster the pyramid grows, the faster it has to grow to keep growing, because you get you get more and more and more layers. I mean, so each layer is bigger than the one before it, and then it takes more money to fill that one up. So if M2 stops expanding for even a little bit, the whole thing comes crashing
Crumbles
down.
down. Yeah, it's like the extra pyramid, the inverted
Yeah,
one.
that's
Yeah,
exactly what.
you take a little bit off it and it just crumbles. Yeah, but to inflate the pyramid, it takes a lot, but it doesn't take much to prick the bubble, so to speak.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
1929, that's what happened. They tried to keep inflating, they couldn't. So the money supply just stopped growing for about 6 months in 1929, and that was the end.
yeah. Uh, Carlos Garcia, Rafi, the fiat printing reserve, it won't let the economy collapse. They rather pay gold, silver certificate, keep us quiet and happy. $100,000 stimulus, 1/5 of an ounce of gold is not speculative.
I'm not sure what he's getting at.
Yeah, I mean, he basically saying they won't let it collapse. They're gonna start printing again, and they probably will. I mean, I think it was Richard Russell. Someone mentioned him, the from the Dow newsletter. He said a few years, many years, well, not that many years, even though he's passed on. He said that it's inflate or die, and he always said that the key level for gold was 1650. So that was Richard Russell.
All right.
Yeah. Uh, Slade Fuqua, can you speak to the South Sea Company Bubble Act of 1720? I think that was in response to the collapse of the South Sea Bubble, and the Act of Parliament was there to like bail out the South Sea Company, and that lumbered the UK with debt. That was a debt taken by the government, and I think the South Sea bubble debt was still in the books. I think as yeah, as long as like the early 1900s. But of course, inflation ate away that debt. And the South Sea bubble reminds me a lot of the crypto altcoin bubble, because they had mini bubbles. It was not just the South Sea Company, but they had loads of other like altcoins of the day. And yeah, have you looked into the South Sea bubble and into that bubble, Rafi?
That's John Law, right?
No, John Law was the Mississippi bubble
It's-
in
it- w-
France. The South Sea bubble was in London in the UK.
But it was the same year,
Uh,
1720.
I think it was the same year. Yeah, but it
Yes,
was
it was the same year. So that itself was, I didn't know they were the same year until you just said, yeah, because he was Mississippi, and if
yeah,
the South Sea bubble was the same year, it means that one bubble was reflecting off another bubble in a different part
yeah,
of the world, because the monetary system is it's homogenous. So
yeah.
um the fact that they were around the same time means that all these bubbles that are happening now, that's one of the fallacies that I hear a lot. Well, let's say people say that America's in bad shape financially, but China is going to be the next powerhouse and they're going to lead the world. I don't think so, because both America and China and pretty much every other country is inflated to death. I mean, everyone is souped up on inflationary drugs, every single country. So when one falls, the other falls. When the South Sea bubble fell, the Mississippi bubble fell. It all happened at the same time. It's going to happen at the same time. Again, we're going to be in a global depression where the people with the power will be the people with the gold.
Yeah. What about Russia? Because Russia, I mean, they do have high inflation, but their national debt is like below 20%. They don't seem to be as leveraged, but they've withstood everything that's been thrown at them, so they might do fairly well in the collapse. What's your view on that?
Yeah, maybe Russia will do relatively better than everyone else, but it's not like any government is going to do well, because it's the governments themselves that will suffer the most from the collapse of the value of their currencies.
I hope. Well, that's a good.
The people that depend on them.
That's a good thing. Governments not doing well. I think we need more of that. So it would be a good thing actually for people who think like us, who don't like big governments. James Hafford, we've got a minute to go here. Rafi, I heard that Israel has 250 billion barrels of oil if fracking is done. In your Patreon, could you discuss Ezekiel 36:38 and the book that will bring the North down for resources?
Okay, I don't know much about it. I'll look it up. I'll see what I can find.
What about this 250 billion barrels? Have you heard of that?
Never heard anything like that, no.
That's a lot of oil. Okay. All right, I'll take one more question and then we'll call it a night. Does anyone like to speculate in gold and silver mining stocks? Yeah, we do. Some of us do. Yeah, it is speculation. One thing I would say about that is that you still need to keep your physical, and because you never know with counterparty risk, with who you keep your, who you broke with. Rafi, thank you for being on the channel. I'm sorry about last week with the technical problems. We've sorted it out. Have you got any last words to the viewers about things in general and what's going on in the world?
Things in general, I would watch Japan, and I would watch. I saw that Putin took away the VAT on gold, and now the Russians are buying gold hand over fist. A lot of them are turning into stackers. I think it's a good thing. And let's see if other governments will also take away the VAT on gold and really get the stacking into a global movement.
Yeah, I hope they take the VAT on silver off here in the UK. That would be very good, but I don't think it would make any difference for the price. It'd probably drive the price even higher, because I think a lot of people would get involved. Just before I go, someone's asking how Rudy is. Rudy's doing really well. He's learning quickly, and yes, he's asleep now. So I wish everyone like a very good rest of the weekend if you're in the US, and if you're in Japan or in Australia, I wish you a good week and a good Monday. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
You too, Rafi. Bye.